I have enjoyed your content. If you could teach a first responder a few things about nonverbal people, what would it be? Well, it's been a long time since I dropped out of EMT school, so I had to do a quick search to kind of see what the current training stuff is, and I found myself here, the National Institute for Autism First Responder Toolkit. Now, this is a wonderfully put together 15-page document that has some very pertinent information in it. I'm not going to lie, I was rather impressed. Some of the terminology and statistics are a little outdated. I want to say I saw the date of 2011 in there, so hopefully things are a little bit more current, but I gotta be honest, I got to page 14 before they even talked about finding the children. Don't get me wrong, there's some wonderful statistics and information about search and rescue, how to locate, how to identify and what, characteristics they may exhibit. And as I get to the end of page 15, I can tell that they put a lot of thought and effort into this, but they did not cover the topic of what to do if they find a child who is high support needs, not low functioning, and also being aggressive and combative, because literally you got to imagine when a nonverbal high support child is in a situation like this, they are 100% engaged in fight or flight mode and or whatever activity it is they're seeking to do. Now, if they are in fight or flight mode, guess what, Buttercup? It's going to take more than two of you to restrain this person properly. That is where I'm going to lean on something that I learned before Squid was born. Squid's mom and I both were instructional assistants for a school district here in California, and we worked with emotionally disturbed kids. And one of the things that every single aide and teacher was required to do to work with these children was go through what's called therapeutic crisis intervention. This is a last resort, obviously, to go hands-on with a child, but it will teach you safe ways and techniques to restrain them, to keep them from harming you, and most of all, from harming themselves. And if you think I'm kidding when I say it'll take more than two of you to achieve this appropriately, it took 4 grown adults to hold Sydney down when she was 2.5 years old when she burnt her hands, and we were in the ER and we were trying to treat that. Literally, we had 4 grown humans holding her down, and she still managed to sit up like the freaking Undertaker. It was incredible. So never, ever underestimate the strength of an individual on the spectrum, let me tell you. Beyond knowing how to go hands-on appropriately with the appropriate amount of people power, I would have to say my biggest concern as a parent is if Sydney was to elope, would be for her to be mistaken for someone who's on drugs. Now, obviously, this would take place when she was older, but you would be surprised to learn how often that actually happens. Quick fact, special needs people are 7 times more likely to have encounters with law enforcement in their lifetime. The only way to alleviate the unknown is exposure. Now, me being a special needs parent, I can typically I can identify another high support needs nonverbal child within the first minute if they make no noises. But if they make a noise in the first 5 seconds, first 10 seconds, you can't mistake that noise. I don't know how to describe it, but you've heard Sydney making her noises. It's very similar to that. But I got to tell you, that's something you got to familiarize yourself with and learn to tell the difference between someone who's on drugs and someone who is in need of severe support immediately. So maybe like the nifty manual suggested, police, fire department, first responders, if you have a few moments to spare, go drop by a school and see what you can see. Familiarize yourself with the children, and they might just familiarize themselves with you as well. You never know. Now, beyond appropriately going hands-on and how to identify appropriately, I would have to say the next most important thing is going to be whatever happens, whatever you do, you cannot take their actions personally. Now, back in my instructional assistant days, I had a 7th grade boy student, let's just call him Javid. Now, Javid, by the time he was in 7th grade, he was 6'2" and 300 pounds. That's bigger than me. Significantly at the time. I was a little toothpick back then, but I digress. Javid and I were the best of friends, unless he went to the meltdown place, which happened quite a bit. And you know what? One day we were in the middle of a restraint, and some kids prefer restraining as a way to get some of the coped up energy out that they can't get out. That's a whole nother topic. But during this restraint, David decided to go ahead and kick me right in the face. And for a quick second there, all the fury of hell was boiling in my blood, but I remembered very quickly that this isn't him. That's not what he wants to do. He's not trying to hurt me. He's simply trying to express himself. So unfortunately, sometimes self-expression for these individuals can involve aggression and violence. There's no way around that. Something we don't really talk about a lot, but everybody kind of knows, and maybe we should do better. That's a whole nother topic as well. But I cannot stress enough, these people, they are beautiful, they are wonderful, they are unique. However, they lack the ability to control some of their impulses and some of their reactions, undoubtedly exponentially when they are in fight or flight response mode. So whatever happens, yes, keep yourself safe at all costs, but do not take it personally. It's not a personal vendetta. There's no personal feelings whatsoever. It is literally self-expression in a way that most people just aren't exposed to. So, in a nutshell, learning how to appropriately go hands-on, as well as how to appropriately identify, as well as understanding it's not a personal situation, it's just a situation. That's what you signed up for in this job anyways. Now, the fourth thing I noticed that was not mentioned at all, possibly the most concerning to me, they have no mention here of what to do as far as like if you come upon a situation and the child is down and you do have to administer care. Guess what? 30 to 60% of autistic children are on some kind of medication. Now, Squid, she takes a medication that allows her not to use ibuprofen. Imagine that. Ibuprofen bringing you down. So I kind of thought it was a little hard to believe, and I'm sure that they have, SOPs and stuff like that in place when they do actually have the child in their custody and they are administering health care. But it's super concerning to me that it was not mentioned at all, not even in the slightest bit. So in essence, to recap, if I was going to inform a first responder a few things about a nonverbal person, we would start with how to appropriately go hands-on, just in case there is aggressive behavior. Then, make sure proper identification is established. Don't take it personal. And do not, for the love of God, administer medications without knowing what these kids might be taking. Now, this is just me, but if EMTs and first responders were to bring this to their union, that might justify the need for a third person in their vehicle and the growth of that whole job industry. Who knows? One thing's for sure, the statistics don't lie. ASD children are most likely going to have an encounter with first responders at some point in their life. And if I was in that position, I would want to know everything I could know to help the best possible way that I could. So thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. Sorry for the spiel here. Rock on. Love you, Squid.